Hello again from Minneapolis, Minnesota. It is 10 o'clock here across the Central Time Zone, 11 o'clock in the East and 8 o'clock in the West. Welcome back to another edition of Kevin Talks Tech Live. So good to see you here today. Whoa, is my camera frozen? This isn't me, is it? Hold on a moment here. I think I gotta fix something. Oh, good to see you here today. Thanks again for joining me and welcome to another edition of Kevin Talks Tech Live. I am Kevin Hurd and it's so good to see you. Yeah, that is a frozen picture of me. That is not going to work out. I want to thank you so much for spending some time with me here this evening. I want to talk with you a little bit about tech, and in particular today we're going to talk a little bit about Apple Watches. Apple Watches, of course, ever since they first came out, they've certainly been the talk, and prior to that, Android had their own version of watches out there. Smartwatches actually is what they're called. And the Apple Watches, though, have really just become kind of a nice piece of that Apple environment. You've got laptops, you've got the iPads, you've got the Apple iPhones, and you've got the Apple Watches, which are great. I'm going to talk more about that here in a moment, but wow, what is going on with me tonight? I am just frozen, which is very strange. I've got to perhaps reset my webcam here as we kick off this edition of Kevin Talks Tech. You know, technology, this kind of stuff happens all the time. Good to see everybody. I am just coming back from a trip. Actually, just got back not too long ago from Denver, Colorado. I love going out to Colorado and visiting, seeing the mountains. I live in Minnesota where we don't really have, quite frankly, a lot of mountains to see. So it's always nice to get on vacation, go outside. Try to do it safely, of course. We are in the midst of a pandemic right now. But regardless, it is nice to get away and to get a flavor of the mountains. So I'm not totally sure what's going on here with the webcam. I'm going to have to actually take a look at this. So sit tight with me for a moment as I troubleshoot my issue. All right, stand by. We're going to get this going. Maybe if I bring my picture up here to the corner. Let's see if that helps. Even us folks who do technology, who talk tech, every now and then we run into some problems of our own. Well, I'll put myself up here in the corner for right now, so that way you're able to at least get a glimpse of me. We're going to do this Brady Bunch style here today. So yeah, coming back from a trip from Colorado, just a great state to visit. A little mix of snow out there right now, a little mix of, some high winds over the last couple days. Those at least luckily have kind of subsided a little bit. If you get the chance, I recommend the city. It's great to check out. And I wish that I perhaps had an Apple Watch with me when I was out in Denver, Colorado, because quite frankly, I was doing a lot of different hikes. I was doing a lot of different walks while I was out there. And being able to track that kind of mileage that you're doing is really something that the Apple Watch shines with. I'm going to compare these Apple Watches kind of back to back here for you on Kevin Talks Tech today, because I think these are actually going to be they continue to kind of be a pretty hot gift. And we are seeing some good deals here on the Apple Watches. Target came out with their ad for Black Friday recently, and there's at least a few main models here of Apple Watches. You've got the Apple Watch SE, you've got the Apple Watch Series 6, and I don't see it advertised on here, but the Apple Watch series, there's the Series 4, Series 5, and then the Series 3. The Series 3 is kind of the base model. If you're just looking for something, that can do those core features like fitness, health, and connectivity, this really is that model to go with. And I could have sworn that Target had this one on sale too. I'll have to verify that. I'm not sure why it's not coming up here in their ad, because I do think that was part of their Black Friday sale. So if you are in the market for an Apple Watch, or you're thinking about a smartwatch perhaps, I do recommend the Apple Watch. I actually owned one myself at one time, and I ended up selling it. But the reason why I sold it was just simply because, and perhaps this might weigh into your decision as well, I just didn't like having another device attached to me. I already have my phone. I usually use my laptop a lot. And sometimes when I don't have my phone in front of me, it's just an opportunity to be able to break away from text messages, to break away from emails, to break away from being basically connected and plugged in. And so an Apple Watch kind of defeated that purpose because I had it tied to 4G, 4G LTE type data connections. I was getting, the text messages, I was getting the emails and such on there. It kind of took away from that balance. But at the same time, too, the nice thing that was nice about it was when you were out and about, you did have that ability to be able to stream music from it. You have that ability to get phone calls on it, to take phone calls, which works really nice. You're not lugging around a big phone. So there are kind of pros and cons that go along with it. So let's go ahead and dive in. We'll talk a little bit about Apple Watch here on the episode today. And then in addition to that, I also want to spend a little bit of time answering your questions, which I always try to do here on Kevin Talks Tech. So there are there's more than 3 models out here. So Apple on their website advertises these 3 different models, the Series 6, the Apple Watch SE. Well, here's the Apple Watch Series 5. Okay, so this is a little bit more comprehensive here. So the Apple Watch right now is on their Series 6 model. This is the latest model, and these are feature packed. I mean, you go back here to the Series 1 watch when this first came out, 2 different sizes, 38 millimeter, 42 millimeter. That is essentially the size of this face right here. I had the 42. I believe at the time it was 44 because I had an upgraded version. And it really just comes kind of down size-wise to what you're looking for. That face does feel a little bit big when it's on your wrist, but again, it depends on the size of your wrist. If you want to have something that big, if you have vision problems and you're not able to see the phone really well, you might want something a little bit bigger. But even look at this. So this is the Apple Watch Series 1 and everything that the Apple Watch Series 1 was able to do when it first came out. So pretty impressive. We go back up to the Series 2, you got the Series 3, the Series 4, and now here we are all the way at the Series 6. What was really exciting is, I believe it was right around the time of the 6. I'd have to double check this to be sure. Apple came out with a version of the Apple Watch that was a little bit more pared down. And really by the standards of being pared down, you're still better off than you are down here, which is great, but you're saving a little bit of money as well. So let's just take a look first at the Series 6 and the Apple Watch SE. Kind of compare these back to back. Talk about, what you're getting. If, you want to save a little bit of money, the Apple Watch SE is going to be the cheaper model to go with in here. And then if you're looking for something perhaps maybe that's a little bit more on the higher end, that's going to be the Apple Watch Series 6, which is their latest. So as far as size goes here, both the same. You got your 40 or 44 millimeter case. You're going to want to go into Best Buy or some type of store where you can actually see the watch, and just to kind of get an idea of exactly how big that case is. And they run great sales on this at Best Buy as well. In terms of display, so yes, this is a larger display than the previous watches. If you go down here to when they were doing 38 and 42 millimeter watches. Okay, so here is where we are looking at the display itself and the quality. So a little bit of a difference here. This is going to have the Retina display on it, and this is going to have the OLED display. Both are great, and keep in mind here too that you are looking at a display that is quite small. So a little bit of a difference from looking at a computer screen, a little bit of a difference from looking at a smartphone screen. You're looking at a watch screen that is 44 millimeters max. So keep that in mind here too. But again, you can notice the difference. This one, both have the OLED display, which is great. You'll notice the primary difference here is just this always on. So just the main feature here is that sometimes this watch right here, when it's not being used and such like that, it'll dim out. But this watch right here always displays. So, whatever kind of position you're in and such like that, you'll be able to glance at it fairly quickly. We go down a little bit. So both have this Ion X glass display. And that's really something that Apple has had here. You look back through the previous generations of the watches as well. So no real change there. As far as your type of construction, so sapphire crystal display on stainless steel and titanium cases. So yeah, a little bit of a different build in terms of the backing of the case with that. And then let's go here. So again, same GPS and GPS Plus cellular models. you've got a couple options here. These all come with GPS, which is great. But in addition to that, you can get that data connection added on there as well. What we're talking about here with the cellular essentially means that you have that watch connected to the internet, and it's not dependent on your cell phone or another device being attached to it. So in one realm with the Apple Watch, you can actually have the watch connected to your phone, and it's going to use that phone's internet connection, kind of like a Wi-Fi type connection, to be able to receive text messages, to be able to go on the internet, to stream music, that kind of thing. But the cellular versions of this have their own internet connection, which is kind of cool. So as far as chips go, S6 SiP with 64-bit dual-core processor, W3 wireless chip, U1 chip, ultra-wideband, and then up here we've got an S5 SiP 64-bit dual-core processor, W3 wireless chip. You're probably like, what the heck does that even mean? Just a little bit of a difference here in chip. You know, I honestly can't give a good recommendation here because I haven't really played around with these different chips and compared them. But one thing you'll note here is that the chip that's in the Apple Watch SE, the S5 SiP, is the same chip that's over here in the Apple Watch Series 5. So, you know, not a huge gap in generations between the two. You know, you might be getting a little bit more speed with this one perhaps. But, you know, you look down here on some of these. Here's the S2 chip. Here's the S3 chip, the S4 chip. So you're still getting the same chip that's in the S5. You know, yes, again, a generation behind. But, you know, at least you're not going backwards beyond that, which is good. Okay, so digital crown with haptic feedback. Haptics, again, just kind of deal with the, how do you describe haptics? It's kind of due to the touch, like the touch of the watch, the way you can touch it, the way you can interact with it with your finger. And again, that's something that comes pretty standard with the Apple Watch across the board. Here's a few health things that are a little bit different. So the 6 has a blood oxygen sensor, electrical heart sensor, and 3rd generation optical heart sensor. So Apple has really gotten to this realm of, you know, being in the health and fitness space as well. We see this with the fitness tracker that is part of this. They got involved with heart rate notifications back here on Series 5. In fact, I think that might have been, that was part of Series 4 and Series 3 as well. Even back to Series 2, honestly. I didn't know it went back that far. So those have been parts of the Apple Watch, and clearly there's been some adjustments with that here to be able to look at blood oxygen levels, that electrical heart rate sensor in this particular version of this. And I think we'll see more of that. Again, just a reminder with anything here, you know, the Apple Watch itself, it's great to have access to that data. Just remember, it's not an actual medical device. So you can use it for readings and such like that, but probably shouldn't, you know, replace actually using a real device that can measure those kind of things. You know, when you're talking about if you're having those kind of health issues anyway. Okay, so a few other things here. International emergency calling, emergency SOS, and fall detection. So let me go here. Let me see if they've got it actually on this page. Okay. So let me just define these things here a little bit. 4 and 5. So we're talking about specifically with the Series 6, and this also does apply to the SE as well. GPS plus cellular versions of this can use a cellular connection for emergency SOS. And like this states here, emergency SOS on an Apple Watch without cellular, your iPhone needs to be nearby. If your phone isn't nearby, it needs to be near a Wi-Fi network and set up on Wi-Fi calling. So that emergency SOS just enables some emergency connectivity to it. But keep in mind, if that's something that you're buying on, just make sure that you've got the proper tool for that, which would be the cellular version of this, or if you're always going to be having your iPhone nearby. Okay, let's jump back down here into connections. Okay, so water resistant, again, that's something that we've seen consistently here through the last couple generations, if not a little further back. Okay, as far as the technologies go, LTE and UMTS, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth 5.0, similar between the 6 as well as the SE. And that was also something that we did see in the Series 5 as well. And honestly, the Series 4. So these are just bands right here, essentially, accessing data. We refer to these kind of technologies by these names right here because they just go along to help describe how much speed is associated with them. These are just different versions of the way that data is delivered. So between each of these two, you've got the GPS functions on board as well, the compass and the always-on altimeter. Pretty cool to have that as well. I don't know if this one does barometric pressure, though, because the Series 5 did do barometric pressure. Barometric altimeter, okay. So a little bit different there. Again, I have not used the Series 6 and the SC, so I'm not exactly sure, how much better that always-on altimeter is versus the barometric altimeter. But if I do get my hands on one, I'll be sure to let you know. It is on my list for this year. Okay, in terms of speaker, yes, a louder speaker here, which is nice. The built-in mic. My experience was the Series 3 down here. And at that time, the speaker was really not that good on the iPhone. And honestly, you're not on the Apple Watch. And honestly, just keep in mind here, too, that you're not buying the Apple Watch, more than likely for its speaker. I think the recommendation here would actually be to buy this type of thing to be able to pair with a Bluetooth speaker. So that way, you're not always having to use your phone, but actually using the watch itself for sound, not exactly probably like the greatest use of it, unless you're using it to watch perhaps maybe like a video or something like that. 32 gigabyte capacity here across the board. And that's something that we saw beginning in the Series 5, but actually as far back as the Series 4, that's where we are at 16 gigabyte, 8 gigabyte, and we started off with 8 gigabytes in the Series 1. So we have, from the previous generation, Series 5 stayed the same, but since Series 4, both of those versions have doubled the storage capacity in here, which is great. And that's something to worth note here too. This capacity refers to storage within the watch. So we're talking about if you have sound files in there, if you're downloading apps or something like that, that's going to refer to the storage. And honestly, that should be plenty of storage for this particular device. But again, as these apps change, as these apps get a little bit bigger, as you can do a little bit more with the Apple Watch, I think we'll continue to see this capacity bump itself up over time. And that's what we saw with the iPhone. That's what we saw with the computers when the desktops came out. This, honestly, 32 gigabytes, just to give you some perspective here, when those first computers came out, we were talking 16 gigabyte capacity, maybe even 32 gigabyte capacity in some cases. And maybe less than that even. So we're now talking about, think back 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, the storage capacity that you would find in a desktop computer can now be replicated in a device the same size as the Apple Watch, which is pretty awesome. So that is how that works. Now, keep in mind that the Apple Watch does work really well if you are in a place where you are in a Mac environment right now, an Apple environment. So you're talking about using a Mac, you're talking about using an iPad, an iPhone. Now you throw an Apple Watch into the mix. But even if you don't have those devices, or maybe you've got one of them or two of them, maybe you have none of them, an Apple Watch is still a good choice. It's well built. It's got these great tools built into it already for streaming music through it. The fitness tracker in here is quite good. And then it's got these other health type of applications that go along with them too. So it is a good watch. That being said, if you are interested in perhaps a smartwatch, let's see here. I have to remember. Android smartwatch. So go on here and look up Android smartwatch. And I would recommend actually doing a little bit of homework on this, just because these change a little bit too. There are a lot of different Android smartwatches out here, and they're made by a lot of different people. And this is because, again, Android is more of an open platform. It's the platform made by Google. You'll find it on more device makers out there, just like you would with a smartphone. And so you have to do a little bit of homework in here. But if you're using an Android phone, this is a great option to turn to, perhaps more so than an iPhone, because you, again, are interacting in that Android environment. A good website that I do recommend checking out is Android Central. They do a nice job of covering the Android market. And so these are some of the watches they've reviewed for 2020. I don't know if they've done anything yet. Okay, so, here we go. This is actually just published on the 10th of November, 2020. So this is fairly recent at the time we're recording this video. And they do give just a really nice breakdown here as to what is included within these watches. And I'm just kind of paging through here a little bit. You'll notice how it does look different than an Apple Watch. Price-wise, pretty similar. $339 Best Buy here for the Samsung Galaxy Watch 3. You go all the way up here to the very first one, and $179 for Watch Active 2. So do a little homework on that. I don't want to ever discount the Android products, or really any product that is not Apple, because we do talk a lot about Apple all the time. Everybody's always talking about it. Everybody carries around an iPhone, but there are still a lot of people out there that have Android phones as well. And so this is great to have for the Android users who are out there. All right, so a note on that, Target is actually doing some nice stuff here with the Apple Watches for Black Friday. I would recommend checking out their website. You've got the Series 6 GPS and GPS Plus Cellular on sale here for Black Friday. The Apple Watch SE is also on sale. And the Apple Watch SE, GPS Plus Cellular, and then you've got your standard Apple Watch SE. Great option here, again, if you're in the market for something just simple that can do more of the fitness tracking, perhaps the streaming, but you don't need all the bells and whistles when it comes to connectivity, like the internet and those type of things, like the cellular capabilities, like making calls to people and receiving your text messages. So that would be my recommendation in those areas. We'll continue to keep an eye on this here on Kevin Talks Tech, because again, this is just something that I think is going to continue to evolve, and something that's going to continue to change as we especially get into Black Friday. Some of these prices are going to drop. We'll probably see more of those drops happen, and we'll kind of be on the lookout here too for changing technology in this realm, because it is an exciting area. I deem it to really not be like essential technology. I think of essential technology is like smartphones, not even tablets, really. That's kind of a nice just accessory. I really view the smartwatches as a nice accessory, and you can actually do a lot in a fashion sense with them too, in terms of getting different bands for them, perhaps in terms of the face of the watch, getting some different colors around there too. So it is a little bit of an accessory of technology and a little bit of an accessory of fashion. All right, so let's jump in here real quick and take a look at some comments that we want to get to before we close out today's live show. George commented back on the hooking up a DVD player video that I created. Thanks, that's interesting info. I have this with RCA cables. I want to connect to an Acer 20-inch monitor model. The S202HL sadly does not have anything that expensive. HM cable input, but has a VGA input and DVI-D input on the monitor. What adapter do I need to get the RCA cables to the Acer? Thank you. Stay safe during this pandemic that we are in. Yes, you also, George, stay safe during this pandemic. It is, it's getting dangerous out there, to say the least. Stay inside. Play with technology. Okay, so you want to hook up the RCA cables to the 20-inch monitor, but you do have the VGA input and DVI-D input on the monitor. So what I would recommend doing is going on Amazon here, and you should be able to get a RCA to DVI converter adapter is what I'm looking for. Okay, let's see if they are... Okay, actually, you did mention you have VGA, so hang tight. Oh, and I'm sorry, I just realized you guys can't see the Amazon screen that I've pulled up here. Okay, let me see if I can fix this here for you. All right. Let's do RCA to VGA, actually. This is going to be a little bit better. Okay, so something like this, this could be an option for if you're looking for something that's just more of a cord. If you're looking for something that's a little bit like a box, this would work really well here. Kind of like this one. It's got, several good reviews attached to it, as does, do we have a couple on here? This one right here has some good reviews on it too. Dig into these reviews a little bit also. I always tell people to dig into the reviews, make sure they look legit. This one actually I kind of like here too, because this one has 11,588 reviews and the price point is really good. So let me actually click into this here real quick. Okay, so what you would be doing here is HDMI. Okay, so this doesn't have HDMI. This one has HDMI on it, but it doesn't have VGA. So you may actually have to look at something more like this right here. This is what is you're gonna connect into the input right here. This is gonna be your RCA in, VGA out, going into the monitor. Problem with this is that it doesn't do sound, and VGA is the type of cable where it doesn't do sound with it. It is strictly a video only type cable. So what I would recommend doing is actually plugging in here with VGA, and then just get yourself some nice, little speakers perhaps. And what you can do then is you can convert that composite connection into headphone size connection. So for that, what you'd want to do is you'd want to do RCA to 3.5 millimeter. That's going to be this cord right here. So you would run the white and red cables. You would connect them. Let's see, actually, hold on. That's not what I'm looking for. Let's see. All right. Hang on. Let me see exactly. So you're looking. How do I get the RCA cables? Okay. Yeah. So what you'd have to do here then is you would again have to get that converter to be able to turn those RCA cables into 3.5 millimeter. My recommendation would be to actually scrap the cables, scrap the red and white connections you have right now that is attached to that composite set, that yellow, white, and red. Use the yellow input to go into that box that I showed you just a moment ago, the VGA converter, and then skip using those two current RCA red and white connections you have right now and get a cable like this. So this is going to have the connections here on the end. So here again is your white and red. And then this end will be your 3.5 millimeter. It's a headphone size jack. Then get yourself just some real cheap speakers on Amazon, and then you would run this into those speakers. Just make sure you've got an auxiliary in or 3.5 millimeter input on those speakers to be able to do that. And you're going to get better quality sound anyway. Unless your monitor has this input on the back, a headphone. Let's see, you wouldn't want a headphone because that would be sound out. You would need to look on the back of your monitor and see if you have an input for this size right here, 3.5 millimeter. More than likely you're not, but it's possible you might. So check that, see if you do. If not, you'll need to get yourself some speakers to be able to account for that. Okay, let's see what other comments we've got here today. Okay, I've got too many browsers open today, to tell you the truth. Okay. For those of you who are just in here, by the way, I should mention I just came back from Denver this evening. I took a little vacation, but my body is still on mountain time right now. And I probably got up this morning at about 6:30 or so, and it's 10 p.m. Central. So I'm feeling it a little bit, but that's just kind of how travel goes, right? It's fun. But after you're done with it, you kind of have to deal with the tiredness that comes along. Okay, so here's a question. Why would you recycle your old PC? Just give it or sell it? I would know whenever people throwing out... I hope I would know whenever people throwing out working computers so I could take them. Yeah, great question here. As far as recycling that old PC, I think a lot of people do that because, it's just good for the environment. But they also just don't know what to do with that PC. I mean, it's literally a big chunk of metal that's just sitting in the garage or sitting in the house, not being used. So the recycling just gives people a way to get rid of it, get it out of their house. In addition to that, make sure that it's, responsibly cared for. But yeah, here's some other good options too. Give it or sell it. Those are other things you can do. But again, the purpose behind the video is to make sure you take the hard drive out of there or wipe your hard drive accordingly. Personally, when you're getting rid of desktop computers and you've got like a hard drive in there and you don't want to take that hard drive out and you want to give it and get some use out of it, what I would do then is just keep it in a close circle. Keep it within the family, keep it among friends, just because you don't know for sure if all that data was wiped unless you're using, a program that absolutely ensures that data is getting wiped. But yeah, you could also give it away too. If it's a computer that doesn't have a lot of personal information attached to it, some people just buy computers to play games, that type of thing. If you never really had it connected to the internet, or it's been a really long time since it's been connected to the internet, then you could look at maybe giving it as well. But use your discretion there. You want to make sure you're playing it safe. I think we answered this one already. Donnie commenting in, I think we answered this one last week. I want to connect a DVD player via HDMI to my HP laptop. I'll answer that again just real quickly. Again, I believe we covered it, but just in case. So this is going to be a little bit more of a challenge. The laptop is just really not set up to do that kind of thing. The HDMI port that is on your laptop is an output. So that is for taking an HDMI picture out of your laptop and putting it into a monitor or a TV or some other kind of display device. So that's not really possible. It depends on what you're looking to do here. If you are interested in putting video in your computer, perhaps maybe like old movies or something like that, or putting another source into your computer to like record or something, then what I would recommend doing is buying a capture card. And what this will do is this should plug into your computer via USB, and then it's going to have a couple other ends on it, and that's going to be the connections that you can use as the input. Let's see here. Video capture card. I'll show you what this looks like real quick. Okay, so yeah, right here. So this is something, again, plugs into USB on your computer. It's properly labeled, which I really like, output. And then on this side, it's got an input connection to it. So this would be where you put that video source in. And then here is the end you put into the USB. And a lot of times these come with software also, which is great. So that way you're able to, do some editing, display it in certain ways. Or you could use a program like I'm using right now called OBS, which is how I broadcast this to YouTube. And then you could use this as a source. What a lot of people would use something like this for, and maybe you are also using this for, is to be able to get a game that you're playing on the computer. So connecting your PS4 to this, or your Xbox or something like that. So then that way you can use your video game that you're playing as a source if you're streaming live or you want to record something. So that's essentially kind of the background at how that works. I think those are all the questions that we got to. Because last week we did cover everything below that. So if you missed some of the questions we talked about, you can go to last week's episode of Kevin Talks Tech, because we covered a lot in those episodes as well and answered plenty of questions. If you missed anything here today, remember, go back, rewatch the video again. I'll have it on demand up here for you, so you're able to go back and take a little look at it again. I'm so sorry I was not able to figure this out with my picture. Yeah, see, look at that. What is that? I wonder if I can fix this. Hold on a minute. Okay, well, my computer today is being weird, but at least you got to see me in this upper left-hand corner the whole time. Normally, I take the web full screen, and so it's one of the first times that we've been able to do that, which is great. Hey guys, thanks so much for joining me online today. Always appreciate you joining me here on Monday nights as we talk technology on Kevin Talks Tech. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel, youtube.com/Kevin Talks Tech. That way you get notified whenever I post a new video. And you also, well, quite frankly, just have an easier time at seeing when I do post new content in general, even if you don't click that bell notification to watch along. All right. Thanks, guys, so much for joining me. Have a great rest of your week as we kick off a brand new week. Next week is Thanksgiving already, which is so hard to believe. We'll talk a little more technology next week. I'm going to wait on determining the topic right now. We're just going to kind of see where things go with Black Friday and if there's any other tech news that kind of makes its way into the fold. So with that, thanks again for joining me. I'm going to leave you with a beautiful shot here of downtown Minneapolis. You know how much I love Minneapolis because it is my home. These buildings right here, man, they are just great. They really look great at night. Thanks, guys, again for joining me. Have a great rest of your week.